We have a lot of parents attending today. Yay! Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hi, Steph.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi,
Hey,
Jeff.
Jen. How's it going?
Really good. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Everyone, Steph, I want to introduce you. Is that okay if I say a little bit of something about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, Steph's one of our newest families. I'm so glad you're able to join today. I know you talked with Michelle a little bit, but it'll be awesome to have you guys connect a little bit today. And then Steph is one of our newest moms. She attended our parent mentor night. Was it last week? It was last week. And then you just came to our USD baseball home game. And Michelle, you participated in that in the past too. But Steph, what was your experience like? Would you mind sharing?
All right, and I am eating lunch during the lunch and learn. It was great. I mean, I'm planning to bring my twins again this weekend. I think for me, because my kids are so young, I need to be a little more cognizant of where the game is at when we head down, because it was a very long game. But it's such a great environment because gives them their space for them to play and roam and kind of explore. They don't just have to sit in the seat and watch a game. And then afterwards, going down on the field, even for Joey, he was a little uncomfortable at first and he warmed up, and it was so cool to see him like playing catch with these guys. And it wasn't even just our assigned player. We had a group of like 6 players that were kind of cheering him on. And when we came home, he just kept saying, I had fun at baseball. I had fun at baseball. And it's like, do you like your new friend Bryson? He's like, yes. So it's just like those little things where he enjoyed it. It's supposed to rain Saturday. Otherwise, I probably would try to take him to watch Bryson pitch on Saturday. But we'll try to do that at a later date. Yeah, it was just great. I mean, my family's a baseball family anyway, so this is right up our alley. And I love getting my kids outdoors, and they had a blast. So we're definitely coming back for sure.
I'm so glad. We'll be out there again this Sunday. And so welcome, and welcome to those new families too. That's why I just wanted to highlight, since we have the opportunity to wait while people log in. I see some other parents are logged in, and I highly encourage you guys to sign up for our programs. We have some in-person events coming up, so I'd love to see all of you in person if possible. But since we are ready to go, I think let's just start, and I can add people as they come in. And of course, this is being recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel posted by tomorrow as well. So hello to all of the families who are logging in from home. I will share my screen and go over a couple Zoom rules for those of you who are new or haven't attended a lunch and learn in a while. We're so excited to have you. Thank you for logging in on a Wednesday. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation. Video sharing is optional, and we love seeing all of your questions and comments into the chat. If you have any questions for our guest speaker, we will have a Q&A at the end where you can feel free to unmute yourself, or I can read your question if you type it in the chat too. Now's the time to connect with our guest speaker, and I know our guest speaker today is very special, and I'm excited to be inspired by her today. A quick update from Autism Tree. We have reached over 600,000 people through all of our social media channels, and it is growing each day. This is since March 2020, we started categorizing and tracking our impact on social media. We have done 70 lunch and learns to date, and today is our 71st. which I'm so excited. All of these are available on our YouTube channel. In 2022, since January 1st, we've already coordinated 17 events. So like I said, I really encourage families to come out and sign up. You can sign up on our website. All of our events are free, so all you have to do is RSVP. We have 55 events coming up this year, and we add events every single week. So I highly encourage you to get involved and reach out to me if you have any questions. We offer 19 of our 20 programs, and 3 are currently in person, though we have more that we want to start in person in March starting this month, and April, Autism Awareness Month, Acceptance Month. And for the rest of this year, we'll be doing more of those, taking all COVID precautions, but still meeting in person. We have 442 videos on our YouTube channel. 379 of those videos have been posted since March 12th, 2020. This is a huge influx of all of our volunteers and program directors and professionals, parents who submit videos of different things. We have volunteers reading children's books. We have our parents giving advice. We post these lunch and learns every week. There's lots of content on our YouTube channel to help our kids and families and stay connected during this time. So I highly encourage you to subscribe today as well. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Dana Hoff. She's our volunteer executive director and co-founder, and she'll be introducing our guest speaker today.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's so nice to see everyone. Sandy Weber, and I haven't seen you in so long. It's really a blessing to get to say hello to you. Is Eric on here too? I haven't seen them in so long. Sandy, I'd love you and Eric to come on and do a lunch and learn someday. You guys, I've known you, I think, for the whole 19 years of Autism Tree.
Yes.
So I'd love everyone to get to meet you, and I'll introduce you like the part of our family that you are. So I just wanted to make sure I said hello to you because I haven't seen you since way before the pandemic. And it's I'm counting it as a blessing today. Michelle, I'm happy. I don't know if you already know Eric and his mom, Sandy, or not, but you guys already know each other?
Wait. I want you to see the beard while it's still on.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Oh my
Who
God.
was that on the phone, man?
I don't know. It was nobody. It was canceled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 33 going on 13.
Yeah.
Wow. That could be a book title right there. Will you tell me, Sandy, do you and Michelle McGowan already know each other?
You know, that looks really familiar.
Yeah, we've met in passing a number of times.
Yeah.
I had really short hair before COVID, so now I have hair.
I love it. Well, I just wanted, before I start introducing Michelle, to say hello, Sandy. It's nice to
Thank
see
you.
here.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, Michelle, I want to say how much I really feel like one of my biggest blessings that I'm excited about for Autism Tree Project Foundation is the work that Michelle is doing with one of our board members, Eric Kusick. And I know we're not really going to go into that today, but I did want to share that it's one of my top things that, Autism Tree has been around 19 years with the focus of early identification, making sure we know the best known solution is to identify children with a developmental delay as early as possible and with the hope of them being kindergarten ready. But within all of the 100 preschools that we worked with and done over 20,000 preschool screenings, our average is what the national average is for autism. And each family that gets diagnosed with autism through our screening program becomes part of our family. And this is where the new program that Michelle and Eric Kusick started implementing last year called Navigating Neurodiversity is such a gift. And I just want to make sure everyone knows about it, that when we have a new family that's coming into the foundation, this program offers 5 hours of help, which is a lot for a new parent. I know when I was taking phone calls for all the early years of Autism Tree, on average, I would spend 3 hours with a new parent helping and to help them to calm down and to understand what are their top 3 concerns and all of that. So here we are 19 years later, and I think it's one of the most important things we're doing is helping families through this new program. Eric got us a grant and we're now hoping to expand that program, but helping a family who wouldn't traditionally have the resources to get help, be able to work with Michelle for 5 hours of time to navigate therapies and the school. And so I just wanted to let everyone know, including Michelle, I'm counting that program as an extra special blessing to the foundation and something I hope will become a big part of what people are aware of as much as they know. I think that we do preschool screenings. This is going to become more of the flagship. And the reason I feel that way is because I think we all know that navigating neurodiversity has only gotten quite harder, more difficult during the pandemic. So I think this program is coming around at a very critical time as we're all going to figure out how to come out of the pandemic. But I just, I feel like every week it's just meant to be. And so I'm glad we're all here together. We've been building, doing lunch and learns since before the schools closed. And we continue to do it because we never realized that we use them for a resource, for sure weekly. It's something that we're constantly sharing with community partners, other parents. We use these, these lunch and learns as a way to have someone be able to plug in and learn. And then also because we share them out after. And what we found is that our community is interested in 2 things, which really lights me up. They definitely go back and open up the emails that we know what the open rates are when we send out the lunch and learn, and also when we send out each Friday. We've been sending out speakers from our neuroscience conference last year, which is the first time we taped our neuroscience conference. And the open rate on that is really high. And I think I told you guys last week, because we had just found out, I think on last Wednesday, that our neuroscience conference that was all virtual last year has had, per UCTV, who actually did the filming of the one-day neuroscience conference, we've had over 54,000 people view that. So it's a huge blessing and quantum leap for Autism Tree, because when we did the conference every year for 5 years in person, the conference room sat 400 people. So now we, went all virtual and we had over 54,000 views. So I just can't say enough about how blessed I am that, for example, Jeff is here every week, and this wouldn't have been possible. Jeff is in Massachusetts and a huge part of our team because we do this weekly. And one big reason, Jeff, is because we value the relationship and the work that you personally are doing. And so I just want each person to know that we look forward to hearing from you, Sandy and Eric, and you're a new family, Steph, and hearing what you had to say today about the baseball program is extremely important to me. What I personally wanted to share and would welcome anyone to share during this lunch and learn, usually after we have time, is I'm always working on something each year instead of like what do you call it, New Year's resolutions. I'd be curious if you have any when I introduce you, Michelle, if you want to comment on this. But I wanted to share this, is that a couple years ago, I really started trying to work on listening each day as like my goal for the year. And then I think last year, the year before, I was really working on being present. And this year, the thing that I'm really, really focused on each day is being centered for myself and for the foundation. And Rebecca and I, our dynamic duo here at Autism Tree, and she shared with me that she's working on being calm this year. And I feel like it's just a really great dynamic for us to keep each other in check with what we're working on, and we're our better versions of ourselves when we're doing that. And so in being centered in this moment, I just want you to know how much I value the 71st Lunch and Learn. And I value Michelle so much since the day I met her. She's just incredible. And I wonder, Michelle, in passing it over to you today, if you have any thoughts on, are you working on something each day where you're like, I got to remember this is something I'm going to work on this year? I'd love to hear it. And then just to say thank you for all you do. for Autism Tree and for the larger global autism community. And what an inspiration every time I talk to you, the way that you treat your boys gives me pause to think, how can I even do better because of you? So
Thank you. Well, let's see. Wow, that's a big introduction. So I think what I am working on this year is to see the positive. There's always something that good hidden within an awkward situation or a difficult situation or a challenging situation. I am a single mom, business owner with 3 children, 3 boys. And 2 on the autism spectrum. And today I adopted my boys, and today is our 4th anniversary for James and Aaron. And James and Aaron are on the autism spectrum. And yesterday was my adoption day for Alex, who is 10. And so it's looking at the positive and trying to show my son. So I ask them every morning, what is our motto? Our family motto is, do your very best and forget about the rest. So that's what we're focusing on this year.
I love that.
I love it.
So I guess I'm super excited to be here. I love the neurodiversity program. I'm so excited to be a part of that. This is a little bit of information about me. That's my website if you want to check it out, or my Facebook page if you want to email me, or my phone number. But the next slide is that I want you to remember that I am a lay special education advocate with 12, well, it says 12, now it's 15. I need to update that. Experience as an advocate for special education. Those are all of the training that I have done. But just remember that the advice that I give you comes from my own experience as a parent and as an advocate, but it's not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please contact an attorney. And there again is my information. So I guess I wanted to talk today about why navigating neurodiversity is so extremely important to me. And I've been trying to do this for a long time in getting help for people who can't afford an advocate. I started when I was a foster parent. I was a foster parent to 13 children, most of them newborns, but James and Aaron came to me and it was very clear, excuse me, right away to me that there was something that was going on with James that I was in way over my head. He was 2.5. He sat in a corner with his back to us and he lined up things by color. And I'd never seen somebody organizing, and everything about his life had been disorganized, but he really was compelled to organize everything by color. And when I realized it was autism, I had no idea what to do. And so I started looking and I found that it was very difficult to navigate getting services. Where do you turn to? What are they? How do you get them? Who do you contact? And luckily at that time I had a job in a government agency, and that meant that I had a lot of time to sit at my desk with access to a phone, and I could call 15, 20 times to get an appointment. And most parents can't do that. They don't have that opportunity. They don't have that luxury. And that's when I decided that I wanted to be a special education advocate. And I've been doing that now for almost 4 years. And so I just kind of wanted to share some of the things that I feel are very important when you're trying to get services for your child, whether it be through the regional center, IHSS, SSI, or an IEP through the school. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and speak up. I am terrible at looking at the chat. So if you have a question, go ahead and do that. Or if Rebecca, if somebody does have a chat, if you could let me know. The first thing I want to talk about is the importance of integration versus inclusion. And they're very different. And often when we are asking that our child be included in PE, included in circle time, included in any of the parts of the school day that they can, they're often just integrated into the classroom, right? So we want our child to be able to have lunch with their non-disabled peers. We wanted them to have as much access as possible, but often all of the kids who have IEPs are then sitting at one table and not being included with all of the kids that are not neurodiverse, right? That are typical kids. And the importance of inclusion comes particularly as you're looking for those peer models, right? We want to have them integrated into, oh good, I just switched my view so that I don't just looking at myself, I see all of you, and that's so much better. That we want them to be integrated, right? We want them to be included, not just a part on the peripheral, not just when they go to an assembly that all the kids that have IEPs are sitting on the outside of the rows. We want them right in there being that way, because what we don't want is when they get out of school, they haven't had any experience, right? And it's not so common now. We're looking more at a lot of inclusion and integration, but even 30, 40 years ago, or even 15 or 20 years ago, that was very much less likely to happen without really, really advocating, and sometimes having to get an attorney to make that happen. But we want to make sure that when we're thinking inclusion, the school is also understanding that definition and not just providing integration. Does that make sense to everybody? That inclusion is being a part of. My child is also sitting on the floor in circle time with everybody else. They're not sitting on a chair, in the back of the room because they might disrupt somebody. No, if that's the issue and they're disrupting somebody, then they need to have more support and services put into place, right? We don't wait for the child to mature or grow out of this stage. We provide them support and services so that they can be included where they are. Does that make sense? And so we want to make sure that we're not allowing them to get pushed back just because the school doesn't know how to do that. That we want true inclusion. And I think that that's extremely important for everyone's development. I think it's been key for my children to have that inclusion and to be a part of it, even when they seem like they don't want to be a part of it. Okay. And the other thing that I really think has made such a huge difference for my family during this time is focusing on my children's strengths. What can they do? And then how do we use those strengths to help compensate for the limitations in particular areas that they might have, right? If they're really great at math, how do we then use that logic that is part of math? Not just the addition of the numbers, but all of the steps and the remembering of the steps and all of the processes. We look at the processes of math and how do we apply that to other things that might be going on in other subjects or other parts of their life, and how do we get them to participate and be as fully valued for who they are, and that they see their strengths, particularly when you start getting into like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they start recognizing that I'm different. I like different things. I think differently. I walk differently. I talk differently, and understanding that those things are really great about you. I'm very upfront with my children. I talk to them about that they have autism. And sometimes when we have an issue, I will say to James, you know that you have an autistic brain and it thinks differently than mommy. So you have to help me to understand how I can help you. Because right now I'm not getting it. I don't understand why that's difficult, or I don't understand what you're asking me. Because in my situation with James, it has hyperlexia, which is also sometimes comorbidity with autism. And hyperlexia is the ability to read without being able to be taught to read. That is figuring out those patterns of how words work, right? So he has a vast vocabulary, but his pragmatic language and his syntax don't always make sense. So if I was to walk into a room because I heard a crash and I was to say, James, what happened? He wouldn't be able to tell me what happened, But if I said, James, how did this happen? Oh, well, now he can tell me. He can tell me that, I threw the ball and it knocked over that and it fell and it broke. But what happened? Well, you and I might understand the difference between what happened and how did this happen as being the same thing. He does not know what happened. So it's understanding that and then explaining that to the therapists that work with your children, to the teachers that work with your children, is that there's a specific way to talk to my child to get them to be able to display what they really know. When we get all of these tests done and we do all of these things, are we testing them in a way that they can show the true ability? Or is the test skewed and they don't really understand the test, and therefore it isn't coming back accurate of what their true ability is? Does that make sense to everybody? So we really want to make sure if our child has a problem with communication, with verbal communication, but their receptive language is terrific, but their expressive language is where they're having delays, then maybe we want them tested with a nonverbal testing, even if they're verbal. But it's because sometimes they're timed out, sometimes it's processing, sometimes it's just weird to be in a new situation, and they're not being able to demonstrate their true abilities and their true needs as well, if we're only testing them in a standardized way and not thinking outside of the box. And so I think the one thing that has taught me the most during COVID and having my children at home, and it was extremely difficult for them to do online learning, particularly James. He's like, I'm not at home, I'm not at school, so where am I and who am I supposed to be? And it was very difficult for him to understand, what are my expectations? What am I supposed to be doing here? And who is the boss of me? Because my mom's trying to be my teacher, but my mom's my mom. And it became very difficult. So trying to find that way of communicating. Does anybody have any questions about that? About inclusion versus integration?
I just want to let, I've been seeing the chat go off. So Anne, thanks for chatting.
Okay.
I think we'll address what she wants to say at the end. But does anybody have any questions about, and I'd love to hear from you, like to speak a little bit later. Does anyone have any questions now for about inclusion or any of that? No? Okay.
Jeff,
yes.
Going back to what you said about school assemblies. There's a matter of being inclusion, but what if the child has sensory issues that can make them
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this should all be child-led, right? But what we don't want the school to do is say, because you have XYZ qualification for your IEP, you only get XYZ, integration, or you only get to have these certain things. All of it should absolutely.
Can you hear me?
And yep.
Oh, you can hear. Oh, okay. I wasn't quite sure. I had it on mute. Okay.
So it should all be child-led, right? If the child can't tolerate that, then you don't make them. But if inclusion is what they want and what they seek and what they need, then absolutely needs to be inclusion and not integration.
Yeah.
There's inclusion in the classrooms, and she's a proloque and she's nonverbal, and she will have a tendency to like isolate herself, and that's the whole reason I socialize, keep her out there, and she built up her tolerance from 0 minutes to an hour out in public, etc. And the school, they've heard me make these requests, and then had an IEP, and they sent it back saying that she wasn't going to have the iPad, she wasn't going to have anybody to read to her, and I know she can read, and like you said, there's a term for that. She knows how to read. She's got thousands and thousands of DVDs that she used to speak with me, to excerpts from the DVDs to speak up. But she's doing her own, count, on YouTube or whatever. She's finding it herself, and I keep trying to relay this to the new high school, and they're just, I keep getting these low staff, COVID, someone died, is on, had a heart, just all these excuses that we get into as the reason why they're not accommodating her, but I can't get them to direct her, the focus on the needs for her to not be determined that she's not worth educating, and she's in 11th grade, and we keep moving around because I keep trying to find the right district, medical for me, school for her, and I'm in where I'm at now. I don't know. See, I elevate in the concern so much that I can't direct the focus, and they've failed in many ways, but they're not resolving it. And now I'll have meetings with the different 2 district specialists and the teachers next Wednesday, so we can all meet and get to know each other finally, since the beginning of the year. But it's hard to break through all this other stuff about them taking care of their program, I believe, before the kids. And it's not specifically a program for autism, it's special ed. And she was in one before where it was at. Can't get her back there. Again.
Well, if you'd like to call me, after this, I'd be happy to discuss.
Oh my God, good, because I don't want to like dominate here.
No, that's okay. But there's lots of things that you can do, and it's making sure that the school understands. And so, often, as unfair as it is, once a parent is working with an advocate, the school changes their whole story, and everything you've ever wanted all of a sudden is given to you before the meeting ever happened. And it's really unfortunate. Thank you.
Because it doesn't happen when I tell them I used to teach special ed myself. Walls go up instead of a better understanding.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to matter if you're a teacher. I have lots of teachers or former teachers or even former school psychologists. But they when an advocate comes, they know an advocate is working probably with an attorney, and they know what they're supposed to be doing. And if you're not doing it, they're going to refer you to an attorney. And so it's just easier to give what they're supposed to have done all along,
initially, right?
Unfortunately. But
right.
It's that integration to make sure that they're ready to launch out into the world, because oftentimes when we have kiddos, regardless, not just with autism, but sometimes when I'm looking at kiddos that I have that have dyslexia or anxiety, the school is a continuum, right? What you're learning in kindergarten is a foundation for what you're going to do in 2nd grade math, which is a foundation of what you're going to do in 5th grade math, which is a foundation for algebra, right? They have it all worked out. But when we're looking at an IEP, they're only making year goals. So what happens when this year is done? We have to constantly be thinking forward. And so I think one of the best advices I think that I give to parents is make a 5-year plan. If your child is in preschool, where do you want them to be in 5 years? And work backwards. If I want my child to be able to read at a 3rd grade level at 3rd grade, what do I need to do to work backwards to get that goal? What supports do I need to use? What things do I need to put in place? And when you want a goal, so the way an IEP works, right, is when you're in an IEP meeting, they read to you their present levels, then they write the goals, which drive the services, which drive the supports, right? But we need to look for, as parents, is what is the service that my child needs? Right. My child needs a one-to-one aid. My child needs whatever it is, occupational therapy, speech therapy. My child needs this support. So in order to prove that, I'm going to ask for this test that I know they can't do these things on their own. And then I create the goal. Opposite of the way that the school does it, right? We want to look at what supports and services are needed. Then we get the testing done to prove that that's what is needed. Then we come up with a goal. And that way makes a lot more sense, and it helps drive and let you know where you're going. But we're always looking 5 years ahead. And when they push back and say, oh no, and they probably do this with you, Stephanie, because my understanding, your kids are really little, right? So, they're going to say, oh, well, we have a lot of kindergartners, 1st graders, 2nd graders that are kind of doing that same thing. Let's just wait. And I always push back and say, okay, my child has autism. He's not going to maturate in the same way as his non-disabled peers. So if we don't specifically teach him and expressly teach him how to do XYZ, this behavior will continue, or this delay or deficit or whatever we're talking about will continue. And what does this look like when he's in 5th grade? Should we get a 5th grade teacher to come in here and talk to us about whether she would like my son to be ripping his clothes off and defecating underneath the table in 5th grade? Is she going to be okay with that in her classroom?
Nope.
And so this is what we need to remind them, is that we're not just teaching our kids for today. We're teaching them how to be out in the world the same way that every other student in the school is being taught.
And so ATP is what's coming up now, right? She's 17 and they are soliciting their program as such because the ATP is off campus, which gives them an isolated area to develop in. Yet the other one, it's on campus and they are promoting the fact that they are still involved with persons. Well, Aubrey has Elmo in one hand and Fight Club in the other. So, you know, the integration is based on what I know about her and what they can tell me, but they're just supporting their own programs. And I don't know how to break through the need of my own girl with a
and we'll
planning.
Yeah, you can call me and we'll talk about some of those.
I'm sorry, I'm not
No,
doing
that's
that. Yeah,
no,
will you put your
okay.
phone number up there again? I don't even
Yeah,
have.
we'll put it at the end.
Okay, and I'll try to.
Or I can just tell you now, it's 619
Yep.
738
Okay,
4747.
thank you.
And then we can
I'll,
talk about that. Yeah, and we
Yeah.
can talk about the Department of Rehabilitation, who has some really great programs for 16 and over in looking at job experience and supporting them. The name is horrible. Department of Rehabilitation sounds awful, but they
I've been in
have
different
great
counties.
programs. They
Okay.
need to change their name, but they have really
Yeah.
great programs, and they can help with those kinds of supports as well. So we want to be focusing on those strengths. We want to make sure that those strengths are familiar and being utilized within the school setting, right? If my kid is really good at organizing and he wants to be a part of it, then give him the job to organize the paints or whatever it is, so that he feels included in the class, he's engaging, and he's doing something that he's really great at. You know, I just had a meeting with my youngest son's teacher, and he's super cute because he's super tiny and he's super active and he's super fun. And so he gets a lot of attention for being super cute, but that's not helping him in school. He needs to be told every time he does something that he's smart, that was really great problem solving, that was really awesome, that you made your best effort there. You got the answer wrong, but go back and try it again. But you made really good progress and you made really great effort. And so we're constantly praising our children in the same way we do non-disabled or children who are not on the spectrum, right? Because sometimes as parents, especially if you're newly diagnosed, is that you have fought so long and looked so hard at what is wrong in finding an answer that sometimes you lost sight of what's right and what's amazing and what is fascinating and engaging and wonderful about your children. Then the other thing, and I'm terrible, so you keep me on track and let me know how much time I have, because you know I can talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, you know, the school is all about goals, right? All about goals, 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 goals. If you don't have the right setting with the right supports and the right services, they are never going to reach those goals, right? And if they do, it's probably because the goals were too low. If we have the right support services and settings, those children will excel like you cannot believe, because they are in the right placement with the right supports and the right services. And that doesn't mean that every child who's nonverbal or every child who has behavior issues needs to be in a MOD severe program.
I have a question.
That is not the only place. Yes, Jessica?
Hi, my name is Jessica. I have a newly diagnosed 5-year-old, and I'm just curious, when you talk about support services and settings, if there's a ideal school type for kids, you know, now that he's in pre-K going into kindergarten, if I can get him in an environment now that would benefit him you know, for the long term? Like, is it a certain type of school? Is it a private school? I know private schools don't do IEPs. Is that because they have more wraparound services or less welcoming to diversity? So
So in the
especially
case
certain
of
districts.
in the case of private schools, they're not required by law. So the IDEA and the ADA only are required for agencies that receive federal funds. Okay, so private schools don't receive, unless those private schools somehow are receiving federal funds, they are not required to provide supports and services. But the school district that you live in is still required to provide those supports and services, even if you put your son in or child in a private school. So they would still have to provide OT, speech, physical therapy, those kinds of supports, but you might have to take your child to the school in order for that to happen. Some school districts do work with private schools and some don't. I don't think that there is a specific kind of school that's better than the rest. I fought extremely hard to get my middle son into a Title I school. And for those who don't know what a Title I school is, it is the lowest income in your school district. And the reason that I fought to get him there is that he was a foster child and he'd been physically abused. He had been locked in a closet. And when he came to me, he was 2.5 and almost 3 by the time we tested him, but he only had an expressive language of a 4-month-old and receptive language of a 2-month-old. So I knew that they would be most familiar with children who had experienced neglect and abuse and how that would affect him in the classroom. Also, Title I schools have the most money for programs. And so he's had a 1-to-1 aide since he started school, since he was 3. And so in my case, that worked out extremely well for him. It's a small school. It has 142 students in it. He is loved there. He feels awesome there because it is a smaller school with a smaller setting, and it has been fantastic. Could I afford to put him in the best school anywhere? Yes. But is that above and beyond his ability? And so while we're always wanting to stretch our children, we also want to meet them where they are and make those steps, you know, at a time. We don't want to overwhelm them. If we're talking about integration, if we're talking about moving into the best school district, if we're talking about doing those kinds of things, we want to make sure that that's not going to overwhelm them with anxiety and all of these other kinds of things as well. We want to look at the whole person and not just how do we fix this situation, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with my children. My children are awesome and amazing, and they have autism, but that's not something that needs to be fixed. So there's no one setting or particular place that I feel is best for a child. It's all individualized. Does that, I know that's not probably the best answer, but.
But Title I schools, you said, have more funding and are typically smaller and have that attention because of the need.
Yeah, in my particular situation, the Title I school that's in our neighborhood has a smaller class ratio. There's only 22 students because they have a smaller campus for him to navigate. You know, there was a lot of pluses. They have, you know, a school psychologist that's assigned to the school, not one that they share with other schools. You know, they have school counselor there, they have social worker there. They have all of these supports in place on campus. And and some people don't know this, if you have Medi-Cal or you can get a Medi-Cal waiver through a regional center, I recommend that you do that, even if you have your own paid insurance, which is really awesome. Because Medi-Cal then becomes the second insurance, but it also covers anything that your insurance won't cover. And part of that is through the school system that Medi-Cal reimburses the school for 1-to-1 aides.
Wow, thank you.
And so that helps my children, because they were adopted through foster care, have Medi-Cal. And so that helps the school to be able to offset that cost. Also IHSS, if your child needs protective supervision. IHSS is a function of Medi-Cal. And so having that Medi-Cal waiver will help do that. And that, can, depending on the level of need, can range between $2,000 and $4,000 a month for supporting your children. So there's a lot of different kinds of things to look at and navigate. And this is why I feel like that neurodiversity program that we're doing is so extremely important, especially to those parents who are new, or even parents, that have been in it a long time and just don't know about these services, don't know that there's special education advocates out there, don't know about IHSS, don't know about these kinds of things, because the regional center isn't always forthcoming with that information.
Mhm. Thanks, Michelle. I do have, we're at the last 15 minutes, so I want to open it up to any of the parents who want more, who have more questions. Leslie did comment, Leslie McNabb. Hi, Leslie. She says, however, many Title I schools have higher staff turnover. Do you have a comment on that, Michelle?
I mean, that can be the case. That has not been the case for my kids' school. They have been there 5 years and it's been the same staff. My two sons have both had all the same teachers. And so, I haven't seen that to be the case in my school district. But I think right now after COVID, there's a lot of turnover all the way around. But you need to look at the school and understand, Title I schools often have a lower academic requirement, right? So some of those kids, they might not, they're not looking to put their kids in Ivy League colleges. So that in itself might be great for a fit for some. If your child is not having issues with academics and academic performance, then you might want to look at a Title I school might not be the best place for you, for your child. It's looking at, there's always the cost benefit, right? There's always the pros and the cons. What am I looking for? Supports and services, or am I looking for that academic? What is going on? Where's my child going to get their needs best met?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Leslie just commented too. She said it's so hard to evaluate schools for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have the right to go and see their campus and talk to them before you enroll your child. You have the right to go see what are you doing? How do you work with children? What is your, have those questions that you talk to the principal, go and meet with the principal and say, these are my child's needs. How would you address that? And when you're offered those supports and services, when your child's being pulled out for OT, what is he missing in the classroom? And if he has academic deficits, make sure he isn't being pulled out during language, arts, and math. We don't want them always pulled out during the fun times either, but we don't want them to do more harm by pulling him out for OT when he's really struggling in math.
I have a question. I don't know if it's fully appropriate for this, but I figured I'll open the can of worms and we'll see. So, and Michelle, my son was diagnosed in October. He turned 3 in December and started preschool in January. And he is, thus far, we've been very pleased with his preschool placement and how things are progressing for him there. The other side of it is the behavioral piece. And we opted not to pursue any behavioral therapy outside of school right away because the transition to school was going to be so huge for him. And quite frankly, he goes to school, he comes home, he takes a nap, and then it's like we have an hour and a half, and then it's dinner time and bath time and bedtime. So I don't know where we'd fit 30 hours of behavioral therapy in. But we are having some pretty significant behavioral issues at home that he's not exhibiting at school. And I'm just trying to
Oh no, you froze.
We'll give her
Okay.
seconds. See if she comes back. She's still frozen. All right. I'll let you know if she comes back in.
Okay.
in the
Well,
meeting.
I'm gonna answer what she asked, okay, what she started to ask. And it's not uncommon for children to have either behavior at home that's associated with school or the opposite, right? So my son, if you came to my house, you would not think that there was any issues with my son's behavior at all, but he has to have an adult sit next to him and help him through his entire day, right, at school. So it's not uncommon. Unfortunately, if they're not seeing the behavior at school, it becomes very difficult to get them to give you supports because they are only required by law to provide supports and services for things that are negatively impacting his ability to access his education. And that's the term in the IDEA. So what we need to look at is how other ways that might be negatively impacting his ability to access his education and get the supports that way. We want to share everything that we can about our children, but if we talk too much about how hard it is at home, it just closes the door and the school say, not our problem, that's at home. We don't see that here, okay? And so we really want to keep it focused on that. When he's at home after school, and while he's in preschool, this is probably not the case at all, but he can't do his homework because he's so tired and exhausted from holding it together all day at school. So that ties it back to the school. And I would have to talk to you more specifically about how we could do that for a preschooler, but it's very common.
Good to know. We have another dad. Hi, Keith. Keith Villers here. He asked, do you have any quick comment regarding the Montessori approach?
Yeah, the Montessori can be really great for some kids on the spectrum if they are self-driven. It can also sort of isolate them, right? Because they don't have that group interaction there. They don't have to be challenged to do something that they don't want to do. So it was not a good fit for my son, because if my son's in our house and he's just walking around doing whatever he wants to do, it's great. It's when he has to sit down and learn how to do math in the same way that every other kid is learning to do math and has to read the same story that he thinks is stupid. I don't want to do this, that it becomes difficult for him. So that's why we need to look at their strengths and their weaknesses. If your child is already compliant and that is not an issue, Montessori might be a fantastic place for them to be able to learn in the way that they learn. If compliance is your child's issue, then that might not be the great fit for them. And that's why we need to look at both strengths and weaknesses. Does that answer your question, Keith?
Has a thumbs up. Great. Steph just rejoined. Do you want to?
Yay!
I'm so sorry. I was like, I hope I didn't just crash the whole call. All of a sudden my screen just froze and I had to reboot my whole computer. So I don't even know where I left off with everybody, but essentially what I was saying was that we're having behavioral issues at home. He's not exhibiting at school, so it's hard for them to address because they're not occurring there. The behavioral therapy is a whole second component of this, right? It's like there's the school piece and then there's this like behavioral therapy that your child gets diagnosed with autism and it's like, okay, what are you going to do for behavioral? And I have no freaking idea. And it seems like a full-time job trying to figure it out, and I'm a little overwhelmed. And I'm just trying to, like you're talking about, figuring out the school and the situation at school it's going to fit for your kid and your family and where everyone's at. Like, how do you do that with these therapies? Because it seems overwhelming.
So,
and to be our biggest issue is he's very physically aggressive, particularly with his younger sister, and it's becoming like a real safety concern. So and we just anything we do doesn't get through to him. So
and so it's not, but he's not having any aggressive behavior at school.
No.
Okay. And so that's where it becomes the difficulty in having school address that.
Right.
And so what we need to look at are what are some of the areas that would be similar where he has to comply. So maybe he's not being forced to comply, or maybe we look at what is the function of his behavior at home. Is it to get attention? Is it to avoid doing something else. And so I get mom's attention off of something that I'm supposed to be doing because I just punched my sister and now mom doesn't remember that she told me to clean my room, right? So it's looking not just at the behavior, but the function of the behavior. And that's what they would do at school, right? So he's running around with scissors at school, right? And so they're calling an IEP meeting. He's either going to kill himself or somebody else. So we would ask for a functional behavioral assessment. And that's really hard to do for yourself, but you can ask somebody to come into your home. And if memory serves me right, Steph, you have regional center services, or did they age you out? And we need to get you back in.
So we were just aged out. We were assigned
Okay.
coordinator.
We need to get you back in. Yeah,
we're back in and accepted in.
Okay.
And we have a new coordinator. She hasn't been
Awesome.
great with the communication. She just sent me some stuff yesterday, but I had emailed her a month ago, and this is the first time I
Right.
heard back from her. So yeah, and it's just, I
So
feel like a lot of people, it's like one size fits all. Well, here's the therapy we offer, and it's 35 hours a week, and this is it, and this is what we do. And I'm like, well, not all of that is going to be what's best for my kid, especially
Right.
now. But
And
we
so
need
we
help with this issue and some other
Yeah,
things,
so we might want to get somebody to come in and do a functional behavior. So they come in and just like they would do at the school, they look at you, they follow you around your house, they see what he's doing, and they analyze what is the function of this. What is the function of his behavior? Sorry, somebody called me. The function of his behavior is, to get your attention to whatever it is. And then they help come up with a plan. And it might be, there's a lot of other therapies out there. The standard used to be just ABA therapy. And now people are kind of moving away from that. And, I think that ABA therapy was a nightmare for me. I hated it. I kicked him out of my house many times of saying, you are absolutely, my son is trying to stuff himself under a bed and that's this high off the ground. And he is so dysregulated right now that you are doing nothing but harm. Get out now. And they did not like
absolutely.
me, and there was some good that came out of it. He learned to talk and he did some other things, but I was not a big fan. And I find it hard. So they're coming around with some other therapies, especially I think now that people who experienced ABA therapy, there's this new big study about that, people who are now adults are coming out and saying, hey, that was hell. Excuse my language. That was awful. And, and we need to think of a bit bigger, better way to do this. And so I think that we can look at other things and put together a packet. Now, it may not be paid for through the regional center. The regional center might just say, this is all we're going to offer. But I think there are a lot of avenues out there. I know Gateway, I don't know if any of you have worked with Gateway Learning Centers, and I think they just changed their name, but they do kind of a hybrid of cognitive behavior therapies, TBS, and some of the things that were less aggressive of ABA, and sort of looking at what is the best fit. And this is what we want to get away from, is that all kids with autism or all people with autism need to be treated exactly the same way. And they need to have the same therapies at the same time, and they need to do the same things. That's old school. And I don't believe that it's relevant any longer.
And it also is based on money.
Correct.
Our children, our situations are a funding source for them. Mm-hmm. They can get you to sign up to the one size fits all. It's easy for them, and they're just after the buck. So, Michelle, you are outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, so
We're very fortunate. We have we're very fortunate. We have a family friend who has been in like a high up position with Cortica. So I've spoken to her, and she's trying to leave there, and she's like, it's very much a business now. Like there's investors, and this is all it's like the level of personalized attention and everything has kind of gone away, and it's just big business, big money now. So that's terrifying to me. So it becomes like, how do you suss out which you know, facilitator is the best, just like how do you find which school is the best for your kid? You know?
Right. And there's a lot of people out there that do neuropsych evaluations and stuff. And so if you can afford it, or you can get one through the school or whatever, I would highly recommend. And there's programs that you can go to UCSD and stuff and get those evaluations done that would give you that information. And it's working all of that together. And I know you're overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, it's hard to think, crap now, oh golly, I'm being bad. Oh, holy cow, I have to do all these other extras on top of that. I was a single mom working full time with a 3-month-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I get it. It's tough. But if we can work and partner together and get through that, then it will become manageable. But I fully understand if my sister didn't live across the street and wasn't there, and the nanny, and took on those 30 hours of therapy while I was at work, I could not have made it. I could not have done it. And so I totally get where you are.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time today. I mean, everybody is saying, you know, thanks for your advice and experiences. And this was just a wonderfully informative meeting. Thanks, Jen, for saying that. If anybody has any like lingering questions or anything, I'd be happy to connect you to Michelle. And of course, we have her contact info. I think I'll share my screen one last time for anybody who, you know, wants to reach out to her directly. Please do. As you can see, she's so passionate, and that's something that we love about Michelle, and so knowledgeable as well. So thank you again, Michelle. I'd love to take a group picture with everybody before we leave. Is that okay? Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll do a screenshot. And I love the comments in the chat. I think I'll do a follow-up email as well with the link to this recording, and like other, I'll go through the chat, and if anybody had any questions that we missed, I'll make sure we follow up with you.
Great.
Have big smiles. Just look at the camera. I'll do a countdown. 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Awesome. Yay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Take
Take care, guys.